Welcome everyone to the next episode of Impactables with Rishabh. Today I have Mr. Sunil Jain, partner of Sprout Venture Partners, and welcome Sunil.
Hi, thanks Rishabh for having me on the show.
Thank you so much. So before we start, I just want to understand, you have been a banker for almost 15-17 years of your career, and then you moved to the VC ecosystem as a whole. So can you just tell us from where you come from, what has been journey in the banking, and then we can deep down into the banking part first, then into the VC part.
Sure. It's an interesting approach to where life has taken a turn. So I come from a Bania family, mostly a Rajasthani family, settled in Bangalore, third generation, but family has gone through its own phases of evolution. So I was well prepped to set up a chain of stores back in 2002, 2003. Okay, my dad was a jeweler and he was trying to set up multiple stores. I had signed up 4 locations and then I decided this is not something which I want to do. Stalled the projects where I think 2 showrooms we had commenced interiors.
Which city?
Bangalore.
Bangalore itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, hail from Rajasthan, but it's like a 4th generation family in Bangalore. So
born and brought up
here.
here.
Yeah, born, raised here. And it's an interesting turn, in terms of, how I got into banking and then subsequently why we started a VC fund as well. So family, father was a jeweler, we had capital, we had access to capital, was looking to set up 3-4 stores back then. Had signed up a couple of stores, it started interiors, but then, something struck me that this is not something which I want to do. Jewelry as a segment that time was not as savvy as it is today. Today you have quite a few organized players. Titan was probably the only organized player then, and it was largely an unorganized market. Mostly trust-based selling was what was there.
Mostly, I think, early 2000s now.
Yeah, this is early 2000s. This is 2003 types. So I decided, this is not something which I want to do. And before that, I'd worked in a portfolio management company. Again, PMS was not a concept back then. SEBI had not even defined PMS rules. But I used to work for a Prudential company in Kolkata, which had a JV with Prudential, doing portfolio management for HNIs, investing on stock markets, but as a portfolio management service. And during that journey between 2001 and 2003, had also, chanced upon understanding investment banking. Deal making was pretty early in the country. So while setting up, while doing these stores, came across a B school which was offering a major in investment banking. And this was SP Jain in Mumbai, who was setting up their first campus in Dubai. And I said, ye chhodte hai, let me do an MBA in investment banking, because during the journey of portfolio management, there was this nudge for understanding what banking is, and banking was like a buzzword back then. It was touted as the most paying job and all that stuff, and you all looked up to Wall Street deal makers, suited, booted. बोला ये अच्छा लग रहा है, तो let's go and do this major in investment banking. So joined SP Jain. From there, the journey has been got placed at JP Morgan. Started working at JP Morgan, doing investment banking. Initially covering, Asia, which included Japan, India, initiated few deals in the metals and mining sector. Spent about a couple of years there, quickly realized कि यहाँ पे जो सीखना है सीख चुका हूँ. And the journey at a JPM would have taken me 10-12 years to reach a stage where I become a deal maker. So quickly did a landscape check. There were 2 large boutiques back then. One was Avendus, the other was MAPE. MAPE was that time slightly larger than Avendus, and applied.
Now I think Avendus is very big.
Now it's very big. I'm saying 2006 types, right? Avendus was big then also. But in the boutiques, there were like 2-3 known names. Ended up joining MAPE, largely because they responded back saying ki aaja mil le. Met them, joined them, and then for the next 7 years did lots of transactions with them. Initially as a junior resource, but when you're working with a boutique, the progress in your evolution is much faster.
Any interesting transaction which you feel that today also you see कि वो 2006 से लेके till 2013 you worked 7-8 years जो भी, and in that duration do you see any interesting transaction which you see today also?
Yeah. So one of the most popular chains which you see on the coffee side is Cafe Coffee Day. They've gone through an evolution and they've gone through a journey over the last few years. But I did the series A, B, C for Cafe Coffee Day, working at MAPE. Also, helped the group raise capital for their tech park business. All the highway cafes which you see was a concept which was discussed back then with the group. Of course, they had some views, we had some views. We went about checking, whether motels as a concept could be successful. They did backward integration in plantation, backward integration in furniture. So, being part of that entire ecosystem. But Cafe Coffee Day is one brand where we did multiple transactions with the group as part of MAPE. And I was involved in most of them. The other brand, at that point in time was also involved in a transaction as a junior resource. This was a confectionery company called Nutren. I don't even know if you remember.
Neutralite?
Nutren confectionery. They used to sell 50 paisa chocolates.
Achha.
Right? And we figured out तो transaction कर रहे थे and the investor or the acquirer said कि यार 50 पैसे में profit कहाँ से बनेगा?
वही.
ठीक है? I mean that was the mindset in terms of how investors used to question. But the unit economics used to stack up. Right? This company selling a 50 paisa toffee was actually a decently profitable company.
After removing all the cost.
Yeah, after removing all the cost, they were EBITDA profitable, making good margins. So, sometimes perception is that 50 paise mein dhanda kaise banega, but dhanda banta hai. So, we sold that company to, Godrej at that point in time. So, these are some transactions which we did in that journey. But there were some few marquee transactions which I did there. We did a transaction in the architectural space. So, this is a transaction where I discovered a company. That time, the largest architect firm in India. We went ahead, sold that business to a large private equity, Bearings, put in capital there, acquired more than a decent stake. And the moment that transaction happened, the entire design industry, which is in the architect industry, everyone reached out to me, right? From a Hafiz contractor to a Kukureja to, all the big guys in the industry, because everyone was curious, what has happened? There's a company in our space which has gone ahead and done a deal. So that was a market transaction. Unfortunately, after that, ज़्यादा कोई transactions हुआ नहीं है in the architectural space. Mostly it's a space where mergers have happened. But in the US, it's a predominant activity. I know an investment bank in the US which does 8 to 10 transactions every quarter in just the architectural design space. So
not
US,
even architecture, but only design.
Architectural design space, right? So US is a much evolved market. India wasn't. There were few large players, mostly regional biggies, right? There were hardly any pan-India players. There were 2-3 pan-India players, but most of them were regional players with, high propensity from 1 or 2 developers. Like Delhi में कोई बैठा था, वो DLF का ज़्यादा काम कर रहा था. Bombay में कोई बैठा था, हीरानंदानी का ज़्यादा काम कर रहा था. But there was no guy who was organized as a professional. So I spotted that opportunity, the unorganized to organized across spaces will happen. And then we, ended up doing a $100 million transaction in this company. Which was a significant minority stake to Bearings, who invested in that company. So this was another transaction. And then when we started getting into design space, we figured out that there were a lot of businesses beyond the design space, So there is interiors, there is mechanical, electrical engineering, there is structural engineering, structural consultants. And these industries, founders used to build these businesses for 15, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. They used to grow old, retire. The firm used to continue if next generation was involved. Otherwise, business was being shut. But I had studied the US markets, and there was a completely different thing which was happening there, because these businesses were being bought and sold, right? And no one was doing it in India. So we started pitching to some of these guys, boss, there is a play here. Let's go and build a book in terms of creating value for you also, rather than just shutting it down, create value. These were then viewed as traditional, trading businesses. Today, obviously the landscape is evolved. So these are some transactions which we did in that journey, until 2013. And then 2013, startup scene in Bangalore was evolving, and that's when I took the plunge to set up Sprout Capital, which was again a boutique investment bank, with an intent, let's advise the new age startups, right? So that's been the journey at.
Great. So in that, in your advisory, like when you started in 2013, उस समय advisory firms, or you talk as a IBs, were not that much also in India, I believe.
Yeah. So the landscape was this. They were the large international IBs, so JP Morgan, HSBC, who were doing really large transactions, right? So JP Morgan, when I used to work, the threshold was $100 million, and this is back in 2004. In terms of a minimum deal size, right? That number has gone up today proudly, but MAPE was the boutique. MAPE, Aventus, Spark, Veda, these were some of the boutique IBs. And then there were the big four, right? Who also had set up some kind of an advisory practice. When I took the plunge, obviously there were not many. I mean, people were still comfortable working because, investment banking used to pay a decent amount back then as well. I mean, And not many people were willing to take that. But I think that was also a period where the market was going through transition, right? The first set of VCs started investing in India in 2008. 2007-8 is when the first set of VCs started coming to India, and that evolution took 3-4 years. 2011-12, you started seeing some decent action around venture capital world. In fact, I remember 2011-12, some of the unicorns today had approached us at MAPE, and we said, "Yaar, हमको ये धंधा समझ में नहीं आता. You want to raise 1 million, 2 million? We can't advise you on these businesses," because we were doing like minimum $10 million, $20 million advisories.
And जो दिख रहा है business उस पे ज़्यादातर, for example, the one which you're saying.
Yeah. So we were more doing private equity transactions, right, at MAPE. And then during that period, I realized that some of these founders also need some guidance, because VC firms were not many. They were not as social as they are today. Today, VC firms are very social. Founders know most of the VC funds which are out in the market. VC funds also reach out to founders, and it's a more social world. Back then, it was not. Back then, people even didn't know what to go and pitch them. A lot of VC funds used to put on their website, these are the 10 slides, this is how you should make your pitch deck, this is what you should present to us because we don't have more time, etc., etc. That market has evolved now, but when I moved out, that was low-hanging fruit. I said, there is some paucity of, advice which founders may need here to approach the funds and to probably also, help them conclude the transaction. People were not familiar with liquidation preference. People didn't know what is participating, what is 1x, 2x. किसी को कुछ हवा नहीं थी उस time, right? I mean, some founders were really smart, but a large majority who were trying to set up was still not clear about these terms, right? And that's where we saw a play, there is an opportunity to advise these companies. So started Sprout Capital. Initially, we did VC deals. VC deals back then was smaller in size.
Any interesting deal which you did that time?
I mean, we did quite a few. I mean, one or two companies, there was a company called Securance. We recently sold them to CMS. I mean, in the advisory business, that company got sold to CMS. It's announced like a couple of months ago. But this was one of the transactions which we did back then. We did a few others, Move and Sync, for example, is a company in this vicinity here only. So we had ended up advising them back then on a Series A. But quickly, doing early stage deals, back then early stage deals were also very small. Series A used to be $3-4 million. And I had come mostly from private equity experience. I said, this is too small to cover my costs. Let's move to larger deals. So we quickly moved to 10 million plus back then. And then from then on, we've been focusing on the 10 to 30 million on the advisory side.
Got it.
But as the companies mature, we start doing larger transactions. Right, so that advisory business continues today. We have a team of 8-10 folks, very select in terms of what work we do, and that continues in terms of.
But what business change you saw that from the first decade, 2005 to 2015, when you saw the consumer business, real estate business, or this particular segment business from another 10 years, 15 to 2025, because you have been in this 20 years kind of a shift from all these two sides which I have also saw. So what change you see today if you advise a founder who is into consumer business now in 2000, say suppose 20 to 25 in between, and while you're advising in 2011 to 2015?
See, as an advisor, I'll tell you, the journey has been evolution. So between 2000 to 2010-12, it was mostly private equity funds who were investing into India. Even some of the large private equity funds today who raised like $1 billion, like Chris Capital is a $2.2 billion. They were also doing 20 million kind of transactions back then, right? And that is where we were advising, mostly private equity driven. 2007-8 was the first wave of VCs coming to India, right? So the second decade, which is 2010 to let's say 2020, there was a transitional shift, right? So there were PE guys who were there in the market, and there were these VCs which were emerging, who were willing to do early bets, who were willing to value companies differently. Traditional PE guys were looking at the धंधा, they were talking की market में 10 time EBITDA पे deal हो रहा है, 12 time EBITDA पे deal हो रहा है, and then there were this venture class which said that I'm doing a venture bet, right? I am investing for the future. There is no rationale to the valuation. Valuation is in the art of the person who is investing on that transaction. So that was the second shift. In between, there was a wave where real estate as a sector, for example, foreign companies couldn't own land in India, right? Investors also couldn't invest much into India in terms of foreign capital.
So it was some kind of a rule.
I mean, it was a gray area. It was a regulatory gray area. 2007-8, there was a press note 3. Rules became clearer. Equity started participating. There were some restrictions in terms of where you could invest as real estate investors. And in that wave, again, because of the regulatory thing, understanding the space, we ended up, advising quite a few companies in that space in terms of how to structure, some of those transactions in terms of risk returns, right? Of course, there are investors in that phase also, who did early mistakes, but there were a lot of investors who were cognizant of, what they're investing into. So both kind of deals happened, but, some people got carried away with valuations. They invested in holding companies at a much higher valuation. Land was getting valued at some obscene numbers and all that stuff. But that correction happened very quickly in the real estate sector. So real estate sector early investing journey happened around 2008, 2012, 13 is when a lot of correction happened. And then people realized that residential is self-liquidating. There's no point investing in holding companies, right? If you want to invest in holding companies, invest in companies which are consistently delivering 5, 7, 10 million square foot a year, right? And that's the way where you see a lot of listed companies started emerging in the real estate. So every sector has gone through an evolution. On your specific question in terms of consumer, I think there are 2 waves, right? I mean, there are 3 waves, and I'll not quote the guy, but there was an investor. I had showed him, a consumer deal, and this is in the VC space, and he said, "Yeah, इसमें tech क्या है?"
Okay.
ठीक है? And this was his question. I said, "See, this is not a tech play.
ये पहला wave था ना?
ये पहला wave था. This is a consumption wave. I mean, you need to believe that there's a demographic profile in the country which will emerge and brands will be built." So he said, "Yeah, we invest only in tech businesses. We don't understand consumer." This is I'm telling 2010, 2011 type. Right, that changed slowly. Even in that phase, there were investors who understood consumer, right? Who understood consumer internet. So that's when you see, the Flipkarts and Snapdeals and
Zomato
all these got, and Zomatos and all got funded because they were investors who said, there'll be this wave where these guys are leveraging tech and trying to solve for some amount of consumption thesis, right? But these were consumer internet. So that a new word was coined, consumer internet. And then that became D2C, right? 2015, 2017, people said D2C में invest करना है. And I used to say, yeah, D2C क्या होता है? India is a different landscape. So D2C as a coinage came from the US markets. But India is an omnichannel market. So you need to build a brand and then you need to figure out distribution railroads. Whether it is offline, online, quick com, LFR, whatever, वो समझना पड़ेगा. But, unfortunately, capital pools जिसके पास available था, they used to dictate कि D2C में invest करना है. So you saw a new wave of D2C investments happening between 2015 to 2020.
बहुत हुआ उस वक्त तो.
बहुत हुआ. Lot of deals happened. People used to say, in digital first, D2C सिर्फ online बेच रहे हो, हम पैसा लगाएंगे, right? But then I think the third wave is, post-COVID, when people realized कि, this is not it. You can't keep selling only online. You need to have offline presence. Brand बनाना है तो offline चाहिए, फिर distribution चाहिए. You also need to have, railroads. If you want to do FMCG in India, you need to have GT, which is Kirana, right? So you need to have railroads there. So we invested in a company called Rippler, for example, from the fund. We set up a fund in 2017. They do a distribution. Again, people used to question, distribution में पैसा कहाँ है? That is mostly, like a Kirana store. It's a family-run organization. ठीक है, तुम distributor बन जाओ एक area का. And brands also used to impose restrictions कि as a distributor तुम कौन सी एरिया में धंधा चलाओगे. But we thought that these things will change. Distribution, अगर इंडिया में FMCG धंधा बनाना है तुम जिड्डे के बिना कैसे बनाओगे? So we took that bet. That company's done really well today. So these are various waves, where consumption trends have also changed. Investors look at the sector differently. But I think today largely, people have realized that this is how, consumer brand in India will be built, because India is slightly different from some of their developed economies.
People have, in some categories, apparel, if I pick up apparel actually in D2C, they are mostly focusing on offline now. It's a big wave of offline coming back again post-COVID.
Yeah, it was always there. I mean, if you actually look at it, even today, if you go to a lot of women and ask them to count 10 women's ethnic wear brand, I'm sure they will struggle.
Okay.
I mean, even if you now think, you will think of 3-4 names and then you will pause. Right, but that's not the case in men's apparel. Men's apparel may, I'm sure, even your wife will be able to tell more than 10 brands for men.
Okay. You made me realize this.
Yeah. So it's interesting that there is, while women buy more dresses, more apparels, and that's why probably they're shopping with multiple brands. Men probably are not doing that, but that's why you see large brands within the men's apparel segment. And you will not find very small brands. But the challenge in India is that, you still need that offline experience, right? And that's why this new wave you're seeing that, a lot of the guys who are setting up offline first, they are more profitable than the guys who are setting up online first. But that channel is, intermediary. I mean, at some point in time, people will be omnichannel and they'll solve for it.
Interesting. In 2017, you launched your VC fund also. Like, from what was your learning? Like, why did you launch VC fund? Because from advisory firm, and which sector you started focusing? And was it very difficult for you? Like, for you, I don't think it was difficult because you're from a banking background in finding LPs and all.
Personally, I started investing in 2013-14. Alongside the advisory practice, a lot of founders used to reach out, and then once you've done 2-3 deals, people know कि अच्छा ये check लिख रहा है चलते हैं. So I was doing personal checks, not large sizes, but I was doing like 20-25 lakh kind of checks back then. And we'd invested in a few companies. Gradually, some friends started participating in the rounds which I was leading or I was investing into. One deal went sour, तो एक दोस्त ने फ़ोन उठा के बोला यार इसमें पैसे डुबा दिया तूने. तो मैंने बोला भाई मैंने तेरे से फ़ी नहीं बनाया. I didn't do anything wrong, right? You took the call. I got to meet the founder. I decided to invest, you decided to piggyback.
Correct.
Right? And around the same time, there was an ex-colleague of mine, Sahil, who's my partner in the fund. He came back. He was working in the startup ecosystem. So we caught up, we were discussing, कि क्या करते हैं, let's build something. And amongst the multiple things, we said, why not set up, institutional early check fund? Because back then there were not many micro VCs. And I didn't even know we were setting up a micro VC back then.
Word भी नहीं था.
हाँ. पता नहीं वर्ड था कि नहीं था, हमको नहीं पता था. और हम भी पहली बार कुछ इंस्टीट्यूशनल बना रहे थे ऑन द इन्वेस्टिंग साइड. इन्वेस्टिंग तो किया था दोनों ने, बट इंस्टीट्यूशनल साइड में कैसे करना है, क्या करना है, वी डिडंट हैव दैट नॉलेज. बट हमने सेड यार कोई इंस्टीट्यूशनल चेक है नहीं, हम बनाते हैं. We were among the first 230-240 funds to be registered in India from inception, right? So we set it up very early in that journey, but then we were said, let's get this right.
So during that time when you set up the fund, the time of setting up a fund was अभी उस समय ज़्यादा था कि अभी जैसे अभी भी लगता है लोगों को time?
Yeah, अभी it depends on where you are. I mean, we took about 3-4 months to get the license at that point in time. Today also I think it's similar, but that some funds are taking more time, some funds are taking lesser time. But I think it's more about knowing how to weave your way in terms of getting your documents in place, getting your structure in place, and all that stuff. But we see a remarkable difference in terms of what has changed in the way of documentation, clarity. At that point in time, the PPM had so many clauses which the lawyers didn't understand. Today, the lawyers are capable of understanding everything which is there in the document, right? And now SEBI has come up with a lot of clarifications on a lot of topics which at that time were ambiguous, right? So things have changed from that perspective. And what we ended up investing, or what was a thesis, was simple. I mean, we said that, let's figure out 2 themes. So between Sahil and me, we discussed a lot. So we invest only in 2 themes. One is figured out, the demographic dividend of the country is great, right? So let's invest in consumer or consumption as a play. So our thesis is consumption. So उसमें consumer brands आता है. It could be product brands. It could be service brands. So service brand, an example, we invested in a company called Fitso, which was a swimming pool aggregator up north. Rationale was simple. Our thesis was simple कि swimming सीखना है तो pool के अंदर घुसना पड़ेगा, ठीक है? And North India had vagaries of climate, so this guy was setting up an all-weather pool.
All-weather pool?
हाँ, मतलब heated.
हाँ, समझ गया.
तो clear thesis था in terms of what the founder was doing, and we believe that swimming सीखना है तो you need a pool, right? Obviously, we did a lot of work around the sector, but these 2 themes were anything. We set up in a service brand which was Fitso, which got built. COVID में फट गया. No one was willing to come to the pools, but founder kept at it.
Post-COVID, it's still running.
It's still running. It got sold to Zomato. Zomato then sold this to Cult. We took an exit when we got shares in Zomato when we sold this to Zomato, and then Zomato sold this business to Cult. So it still runs part of the Cult. So if you see the Cult app,
Fitso वहीं पर देखा है मैंने.
So that continues. So that's an example of a consumer brand. We also did a few on the product side, which is our main thesis. So we did Fashor, which is a women's ethnic wear brand. We did a snacking company, healthy snacking company, Eat Anytime, got acquired by Emirates Trading Group. We exited as part of that exit. Then we did consumption play, Rippler, which is which is a authorized distribution play. Again, the company is based in your vicinity. Again, that company has done extremely well. They've rewritten the rules of how authorized distribution could work. So that was consumption as a thesis. The other thesis was pretty simple. We said technical talent of the country, right? I mean, we didn't define technology, or we didn't define we'll do this. We said, we have a great talent which is going global, and if they can create products there, I'm sure as a Jugadu country we'll do much better. So let's figure opportunities within this talent pool in terms of founders who can come with products or services around technology. And how much of tech they use doesn't matter, I mean, it could be tech intensive or tech lenient, but there is adoption of tech which is going to happen in terms of solving, software/hardware problems. So hardware mein IoT hai, AR, VR hai, whatever, right? And software mein there is SaaS, and there is now people have moved to, AI and stuff like that. But our first investment in AI was in 2018. So at that point in time, we didn't know कि AI investment है. हमने तो use case देखा, हमने founder को समझा, and we figured out कि founder will build his railroads.
So when you were setting up the fund, तो बस इसी में जब आपने you understood the fund thesis, आपने invest भी किया, तो इसमें you didn't face a problem in finding good LPs, क्योंकि back then I think 2008 से VCs आना start हुए थे इंडिया में, and global VCs को लाना was difficult I believe during that time. Some Indian LPs were there, sorry global LPs मैं बोलना चाहता था. Indian LPs might be there. So for you, during the mid of the time, from the start till now, so was very difficult to find LPs, convincing them?
I'll tell you very interesting. See, Sahil and me, when we met, there was no thought process. We didn't know how to set up an institutional fund, because neither of us worked at a fund. I mean, I was a banker. He was also a banker, and then he went to the US, came back, was working in the startup space. So we had experience in understanding businesses, because as bankers or as entrepreneurs or founders, as Sahil also worked in companies where we was understanding कि धंधा कैसे चलता है, right? और धंधा में thesis क्या है, क्यों चाहिए, कौन सा धंधा चलेगा नहीं चलेगा, ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग हमारे पास थी. दूसरा हमने बोला यार फंड बनाते, टारगेट वारगेट कुछ नहीं था हमारा कि कितना बनाना है, क्या रेस करना है, बिकॉज हमको हवा नहीं थी. आई मीन जेन्युइनली हमको हवा नहीं थी. हमको ये पता था कि इंस्टीट्यूशनल फंड बनाते हैं, क्योंकि लॉट ऑफ दीज स्टार्टअप्स डोंट हैव इंस्टीट्यूशनल एक्सेस टुडे, एंड दैट टाइम वी वर अमंग्स द अर्ली गाइज टू मेक what is today coined as micro VC fund. In my network, both socially, in my community, amongst my friends, some of them were already investing with me. There was also a conversation of some people who wanted to set up, a structured process of investment. So we said that, let's do this. And it didn't happen that I planned first and then I went. It was a multitude of conversations, and then, we didn't take much time. I mean, by the time we finished our documentation, we had signed up all our LPs. Okay, because it was largely people we knew. It was a combination of some LPs talking to us as well. People from the community knew me. They were talking to me, let's, we want to invest in this space. So things fell in place for us. We could quickly, get these LPs, and we did a small fund. I mean, back then about $6-7 million का fund था. हमने बोला चलो इससे start करते. Thesis then was to do 300-400K kind of investments, and we did about 14-15 companies, Average check-in that was much smaller. We didn't end up doing 300K. We did about 200-250K.
That was fund one.
That was fund one. And then, 4 years, 5 years out, which is pretty late by VC standards, we said, now let's do fund two. But, that 5 years mein wo fir COVID shuru ho gaya, and we were in the middle of COVID. We said, let's wait. And then post-COVID, we started returning some capital back to our fund one investors.
Okay.
So today we are set at a very healthy DPI also on our fund one. And then when we started returning money, we went and pitched back to the same LPs, roll this money over.
उनको तो आएगा ही फिर interest.
So this fund two which we raised is mostly rolled over money from our fund one LPs. So maybe 1 or 2 new guys, but we have not gone to market to raise money, because my existing LPs in fund one rolled it over to fund two. And again, fund two, similar story.
Fund two then you might have came in 2022, 23.
So 23. मतलब intention was hit the market in around 2021, but after COVID
तो
wave one.
जो peak में जो समय हो रहा था, जो सब लोग invest करे 2022, you might be observing that time then.
No, actually, yeah, I mean, we had committed to 3 investments between December 19 and Feb 20. Right, all these deals we ended up doing despite the fact that COVID had started in March. Some got delayed for 3-4 months, but a couple of them we went ahead and invested. because couple of them were not impacted by COVID. One of them got impacted by COVID. We stalled it for 3-4 months, and then we reinvested, or actually we did a smaller allocation and then we did a higher allocation subsequently. So and those companies have done well. One of them was actually Rippler. I think December 19 is when we committed. Feb में COVID हो गया था, but they were beneficiaries of COVID. Okay, on the contrary, because
my company was also beneficiary of COVID.
So similarly, there was another company. They were not beneficiaries of COVID, but we had done an investment in Feb 20. I think lockdown was announced in March 20. We told the founder, go.
But did you think that the COVID played a very important role in shaping the consumer space in India?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, two reasons for that. For us, when we were investing or when we set out Thesis, I mean, we had done consumer investments even before we set up the fund as an individual, right? So in my mind, it was always clear कि यार India थोड़ा अलग country है. तो यहाँ पे ये D2C ये सब ठीक है बोलने के लिए, but you need to be omnichannel, and in some cases you don't even need to be omnichannel. You need to figure out which channel is right for you. For example, one space where I think you don't really need to be omnichannel, and what is being solved today by quick commerce is actually gifting. Okay, so if you see, there used to be Archie's way back 15-20 साल पहले, which was a pan-India gifting solution, right? अभी कोई है नहीं equivalent
Archie's का भी हो चुका है ऐसा लग रहा है.
Greeting cards बेचता था, but he started adding other products, right? तो gifting में Archie's was the port of call, right? But that is solved by quick commerce today. आज तुमको यार कुछ भी गिफ्ट देना है, quick commerce पे ढूंढो आ जाएगा, right? So अगर तुम एक गिफ्टिंग का ब्रांड बना रही हो और बनाना चाहते हो, तो I think quick commerce solves for it. So that's the channel where you need to distribute, right? I mean, you don't need to bother about the other channels. You don't need offline, online, because online is too late for you to deliver. And gifting is a category where it's an impulse purchase. I mean, तुमको जाना है पार्टी में 10 मिनट पहले मैं याद आएगा यार गिफ्ट नहीं लिया है, ठीक है? So I think quick commerce solves for it. So that channel is good for a consumer brand in that category. So I think our view has always been that channel will be decided by कि तुम क्या बेच रहे हो. अगर तुम अपैरल बेच रहे हो तो तुमको सब जगह रहना है. तुमको ईबीओ भी चाहिए होगा, एलएफआर भी चाहिए होगा, ऑनलाइन भी चाहिए, मार्केट प्लेस भी चाहिए, राइट? कितना किधर क्या बेचोगे डिपेंड्स ऑन योर एबिलिटी टू स्किम थ्रू दैट चैनल.
But purchasing pattern, I saw a change because I come from Tier 3 city. So when I was in college and when I was 2015 to 2019, during that time purchasing उस समय तो मुझे भी नहीं पता था, 1920 purchasing something online, people used to think कि खराब आएगा प्रोडक्ट, टूटा हुआ आएगा, क्वालिटी अच्छा नहीं है, डुप्लीकेट है, ये था. बट इन 2021 और 20 में व्हेन एवरीथिंग वाज नॉट ओपन, बट फ्यू थिंग्स व्हेन वी यूज्ड टू ऑर्डर समथिंग, मैं घर में था 2 साल, तब माय फादर एंड मदर और एवरी अंकल आंटी यूज्ड टू सी कि मैं ऑर्डर कर रहा हूँ कुछ, दे यूज्ड टू टेल मी कि हमारे लिए भी ऑर्डर कर दो. So that pattern I saw changing in terms of online ordering, like more penetration into the Tier 2, Tier 3 city market of India, or trust, because always this myth was there or this mentality was there कि खराब ही आएगा सामान. So electronic items they will never purchase, they will go and purchase. So I started ordering mobiles also.
अच्छा.
So that is how things got changed in my family, which I saw, and I also talked with some other friends of mine जो Tier 2, Tier 3 से, वो ये बोले कि हमारे घर में भी acceptance हुआ. So online ordering become very crucial during that time I witnessed.
नहीं, so I agree with you. Maybe Tier 2, Tier 3 में there have been a generation which was probably not easy on accepting, but there was also a generation which was willing to order and experiment.
Correct.
Right? Question was where am I ordering from? So even today, for example, you may not be comfortable ordering on a D2C website of an unknown brand.
Exactly.
But if it's a known brand, you will probably order on his website, right? But that challenge remains today, and probably you will go and look up that brand if you like a product, maybe on a Myntra or an Amazon or whatever, right? So that inhibition is there, okay, but adoption was happening. I mean, we were seeing that there was adoption happening. I mean, at least Tier 1 में तो हो ही रहा था. Tier 2 also I knew people who were adopting. May not be, the numbers were not very big, but it made sense because for the brand to actually go and sell in the Tier 2 would have been a more expensive affair than to sell whatever he was selling online. So even whether he was selling, let's say 20-30 pieces a month in a Tier 2 city, that was additional business for the brand because वैसे भी वो वहाँ पे जाने वाला नहीं था. मतलब वो वहाँ पे जाके स्टोर तो नहीं लगाने वाला था या शॉपर स्टॉप उसको वहाँ पे लेके नहीं जा रहा था, राइट? तो उसके लिए तो वो एडिशनल धंधा था. So that's how we were viewing that business because if you actually look at consumer brand सारे start होते हैं 1-2 stores से 5 store 10 store वैसे in the traditional offline side.
Very interesting. But so coming to the next set, a 25-year-old founder pitching today, 2025, and pitching back in 2012. What change you saw, और कि उनके सोच में या what myth they are carrying? So you must have seen that difference.
No, yeah, I mean देखो दो चीज़ें हैं. एक तो today because a lot of content, a lot of data is available online. Most people who come and pitch come decently prepared, right?
Okay.
One thing which I see lagging is confidence.
Today.
Okay. When I say it's not like specific to a person, but I'm saying as a percentage. Today, if 100 people are pitching to me, a large majority will be low on confidence. They'll have a lot of data, but their confident numbers is very low at a set of 100. But within that set of 100, there will be 5 Todo founders. Matlab, sometimes we are amazed that they know much more than we would have known at the age of 22, 23, 24. Right? So there is a cohort within this set which is exceptionally brilliant.
And back then?
Okay. Back then, if today I'm getting 100, just to give, today we get about 250 pitches a month. Right? Back then we were not getting 250 pitches a month. We were probably getting, 50 pitches, 1/5. I'm saying 2012. 2016, 17 we were getting about 100 pitches a month. Today we're getting 250 pitches, 300 pitches a month. 2012 में यार 20, 25, 50 मिलते थे. ठीक है वो. हाँ. But उसमें से हम लोग 10, 15, 20 को जो मिलते थे, and they were pretty confident about what they were pitching. They didn't have nuances कि MRR क्या है. They didn't know technical words, but उनको धंधा solid पता था. They knew कि वो क्या बोल रहे थे. They were much more confident about the business they were building.
But today also when you listen to any pitch, so you listen to the story the founder is making you understand or making you believe, or the business what he is building. Because what two difference which I saw. So I also got I get 50 to 60 messages in a month on inbound via LinkedIn. So most of the people say big stories. Okay, in terms of when I speak, it becomes a very different story. Because I ask on different aspect, like because I am a founder, sure. I will ask in very different aspect.
Absolutely.
So my asking aspect is very different. So some of the founders don't realize कि किसको pitch कर रहे हो, क्या pitch कर रहे हैं. Story telling पे बहुत ज़्यादा focus हो गया आज के time पे. I see people say कि story telling is very important. Do you believe कि story telling is very important?
यार story telling important है नहीं है, that's a secondary thing. I mean, of course, क्या हो गया है कि because the world has become so social and there is so much content available, there are multiple intermediaries today who are preparing the founders for storytelling, right?
Exactly.
A lot of founders come and start, what was the starting point, and you can make a pattern. A lot of them start with a story which is not true, right? Some of them actually start with a story which is unique, which may be true, but a lot of them are making up a story. And it's when you look at a large cohort, sometimes you're able to read through that. But fundamentally, I'll tell you, we are seed stage investors, right? My bet is largely on the founder.
Correct.
On the investing side. Advisory business may it's slightly different. But when I'm looking to bet on founders, there are two things. One, before we meet the founder, we do an internal assessment कि ये धंधा किस में बना रहा है. तो इस कैटेगरी में हमारा व्यू क्या है in terms of धंधा बन सकता है, नहीं बन सकता है, कैसे बनेगा, क्या nuances है, burn क्या रहेगा, capital intensive है, capital light है. So these calls on the sector we would have done even before we decide to get onto a call with the founder. Second, because it's largely a bet on the founder, I think one is, we try to understand what is the character of the founder, what is the depth he's gone into, how is he pitching, what is his, understanding of the sector, what is his ability to pivot if it is required to pivot, what is his understanding on business aspects. A lot of founders come to us technically बहुत strong होते हैं. बट मोनेटाइजेशन क्या करेगा, बिजनेस अंडरस्टैंडिंग में वीक होता है, तो या तो फिर उसके साथ एक को फाउंडर चाहिए जो ये सब समझेगा, या फिर नहीं है तो फिर देन वी ऑल्सो टेक अ कॉल कि इस पे बेट लेना चाहिए नहीं लेना चाहिए. बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली हम तो यार इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं पैसा बनाने के लिए. तो अगर फाउंडर मोनेटाइजेशन पे थोड़ा वीक है तो देन दैट्स समथिंग विच वी विल नॉट टेक अ कॉल. तो बिकॉज यू आर बेटिंग ऑन द फाउंडर, आई थिंक यू नीड दैट characteristics, clarity from the founder, and there should be some chaspa of the founder. What I mean is that he should be able to, continuously build on it, be problem solve on his business, manage team, investor, co-founder, वो ability उसमें है या नहीं है?
इंटरेस्टिंग। तो नहीं, मैं इसलिए भी पूछा ना कि आई ऑल्सो व्हाट हैपेंड विथ इन 2019 व्हेन आई वाज पिचिंग, सो ऑब्वियसली दैट टाइम नंबर वर वेरी लेस कि 50 लाख का रेवेन्यू था, 10,000 यूजर थे ऐप में, बट देन टू आई थॉट कि दिस इज डिसेंट नंबर इन ऑर्डर टू रेज सम स्मॉल मनी, बट 2-3 फैक्टर्स केम इन, like obviously that time
Sure.
people used to see background, and अब आज के टाइम पर that is become very lesser now, and people used to see कि मैं कहानी क्या बोल रहा हूँ। फिर मैंने 2021 में क्या किया, 10 लोगों से बात की, तो मैंने 10 लोगों को 5 को मैंने कहानी सुनाई, 5 को मैंने नंबर सुनाया, वो 5 कहानी सुनने वाले जल्दी कन्विंस हो गए मेरे से।
नहीं तो उसमें दो चीज़ है ऋषभ। आई मीन वन, सी देर आर इन्वेस्टर्स हु हैव द विजन फॉर अ स्पेस, राइट, एंड इन दैट विजन इफ समवन इज गोइंग टू पिच हिम एन आइडिया कि चलो ये विजन है और ये बंदा भी ठीक है, ये बना लेगा, तो दैट इन्वेस्टर विल गेट बॉट इनटू दैट काइंड ऑफ अ स्पेस, right? See, storytelling is two things, one is your ability to pitch your idea, second is creating buzzwords, right? There was probably a wave where people were carried away by these
with the buzzwords,
but I don't think that wave is sustainable. ठीक है, तो वो एक वेव होता है, हर एक 2016-17 में कुछ और वेव था, 2018-19 में कुछ और वेव था, 2021 में द ईयर आफ्टर कोविड वाज अ बर्सर्क ईयर, राइट? पीपल वर कमिटिंग 100, 200, 300 million without looking at founders. I mean, I know one large VC which didn't even meet the founder, gave him a $100 million check, right? It was all Zoom calls. I mean, didn't meet in person. बट जूम कॉल 2-3-5 जूम कॉल किए, डिलीजेंस किया, रिमोट था सब कुछ।
मिलने का बाय मीटिंग इट बिकम्स वेरी डिफरेंट स्टोरी।
या वी हैव अ पॉलिसी, वी हैव नॉट बैक्ड एनी फाउंडर विदाउट मीटिंग देम इन पर्सन.
So this I have heard from lot of VCs these days.
So I mean, it's always been the case with us. I mean, fortunately we didn't have much capital left in that wave of 2021-22. We had something which we had deployed in the between the first wave and the second wave. Second wave we delayed our fund to raise, so we were not investing in that period. It also worked for us because we don't believe in investing without meeting the founder.
One last suggestion which you will tell to any founder when he or she is approaching to you, like how he should prepare the pitch, like the first message, because that is very important.
Yeah, so two things, right? I mean, a lot of founders work in a very different manner, but what I look for is whether the founder has got clarity of thought. Okay, I mean, there are other aspects which the founder should have, like he should be dedicated, he should have skin in the game. Skin in the game need not mean कि उसका capital होना चाहिए, right? But एक founder अगर कहीं और काम कर रहा है, वो बोलेगा अगर आप पैसा डालोगे तो मैं क्विट मारूंगा, तो उसको कन्विक्शन नहीं है, ठीक है? तो अगर तुमको कन्विक्शन है कुछ सॉल्व करने का, एंड दैट नीड्स टू बी कम थ्रू योर एक्शन एज वेल, ठीक है? यू कैन बी सिटिंग इन अ कोजी जॉब मेकिंग 60, 70, 80 lakhs, 1 crore, 2 crore a year, saying that yeah, if someone else puts money, then I will take this jump of moving out of my job. That doesn't cut it out for me. Correct. I'm not saying that founder will not be successful, but for us it doesn't work. But for us, the first thing which we see is the clarity of the thought, right? Clarity could be, and that is very important because he knows what he's solving. He knows what is his market. The TAM may be small, big, that doesn't matter, but whether he's got clarity. So we've invested in a company in the mom's apparel space,
Okay,
right? They do functional clothing for pregnant women, right, in the mom space. Husband wife duo, very clear in their thought process, very clear what they're building. It's not a large market. I mean, the way we see it is that if it's even a small decent business built, it will be a profitable
but they can
business.
also launch the baby segment also later.
They can. I mean, there are other avenues to increase your time, but in that the time in the category which there is very small, but they had very clear thought in terms of what they are solving for, what is the functionality they are solving for, whether it is during pregnancy, pre-pregnancy, post-pregnancy, right? That clarity of thought is very important for me when I look at founders. So that's something which we eye for in terms of clarity of what the founder is solving for, clarity in terms of what will they do if things go awry.
That is more important.
Okay, so that is where we spend some time with founders on. Of course, there are other sectors which you want to look at, in terms of founder fit, but this is very important for me कि उनका clarity कितना है and उनका चस्पा कितना है in terms of managing. You need to be a people manager. You cannot as a founder say कि कोई और कर लेगा वो. So that is another thing where we spend time. There are founders where we've decided to go back after looking at his behavior before investing, after having committed also, right? Because those are signs in terms of how you handle people, how you manage people, because it's ultimately you will grow only if you can manage the people around you.
Interesting. With this, thank you so much, Sunil, for being here.
No, pleasure is mine.
It was really amazing talking to you and understanding the landscape. Thank you so much.
Sure. No, happy to be here, and thanks to you.
Thank you.